Hi everyone, you're tuned into Savvy, the show featuring entrepreneurs, authors, and people with a passion. I am your host, Kathleen Driver, and I'm joined today by Kimberly Ann Collins. Kimberly is the founder of SOAR, and she's also the author of Choose You, Wednesday Wisdom to Wake Your Soul. Kimberly, thank you so much for coming in today. I'm so excited to have you here. So you have so many good things going on that I'm interested to hear about. First, tell us about your organization, SOAR. I read something very compelling on your website. So it was about the SOAR story and how you got started. Can you tell us about that?
Okay, so first I just want to say that SOAR is a writing for healing movement.
Okay.
And I say that because of how it got started. I was substitute teaching fourth graders when I was in Atlanta, and they were driving me crazy. And I told them, okay, everybody sit down, grab a piece of paper, and write. And I gave them a writing prompt, your bear went into the woods. And everybody wrote about their bear going into the woods. Well, one little girl, and her name was Kimberly, no joke, I can still see her, beautiful little girl, sitting, because she was always kind of quiet, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so everybody talked about the bear going to the circus, and this bear met up with this person.
Right.
Well, Kimberly's bear went to grandma's house in the woods, got a nickel bag of weed.
And that just blew my mind. I'm telling you.
And ran out into the street and got hit by a car.
Wow.
So right then I said, and actually after that I instituted writing as part of, and it actually became, they look forward to writing time.
Right.
So
I have to ask you, was there any follow-up with little Kimberly about, her experience with the writing prompt? Because like you said, all the other kids were, at the circus and more childhood type things, but, I'm curious as to the follow-up with little Kimberly.
Okay. I don't remember. That was a really long time ago.
Okay.
But it stuck out for me. So what little Kimberly did for me was say that writing was a place where they can, whatever trauma, whatever's going on with them, that they're not able to articulate verbally, they can put it here,
right,
or there,
mm-hmm.
and that's what she did.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure other stuff was revealed. I just don't remember. That was the starkest example of what I was doing. Right. And then later, I started to develop what I now call my poetry training wheels, where you have to take a class to sort it out. It'll take too much time for me to really explain it. But actually, it's in my book.
Okay.
So I offer the whole writing training wheel. I offer that strategy
in your book.
Yeah,
okay, we'll get to that in a second.
Yeah,
I'm still curious about your Kimberly story, because I think it's a prime example of how cathartic writing really is, but most of us don't realize it. Mm-hmm. And a lot of, I guess, motivational speakers and folks that just motivate us, and I guess I can't think of the word, but one of the things that they encourage us to do is to write.
Right.
Because words have power, but words can also be very healing.
And one of the reasons why I developed the writing training wheels is because a lot of people get stopped by the thought of writing. The first thing that they say is that I'm not a poet.
Right, and you don't have to be.
And you don't have to be.
And I'm glad that you're here, because I'm also a writer. Okay. But don't you think, and it took me a long time to admit that I was a writer, although I've been writing my entire life. I mean, writing was just something that I always enjoyed. I was good at it. I got good grades in writing. Mm-hmm. But don't you think everybody is a writer? Would you say?
Yeah, we're all writing our story in one way or another.
Exactly.
And I encourage journals. So as I said, this SOAR just really kind of took a life of its own. So first I started with the elementary students, and then I started working with this group in Stone Mountain, Georgia. It was called Art Time. Mm-hmm. It was an after-school program. Mm-hmm. And I remember this little boy named Josh who was on Ritalin, and the things that he expressed about how his body felt.
Wow.
And those different stories that children were able to put down on paper that they probably weren't able to tell their parents.
Right.
And they gave the paper gave them, and the class gave them a certain kind of freedom, right? and they weren't constricted with the right answers, because there isn't necessarily a right answer. And since I've been working at Morgan State for the past 11 years, teaching developmental writing, I always have a prompt where I have the students have some kind of self-reflecting writing, which has led me to create what is now called under SOAR, Get Your Mind Right, where I am trying to assist students to become emotionally as well as academically ready for college writing and college life. Because I have so many students who might be academically ready for college, but emotionally they fall apart. I can't tell you how many students I've had that for the first few weeks I see them and they're doing well, and then I find out that they're just sitting in their rooms.
Wow.
You know, and I don't have a way to get them out, right? And so I also have the kind of personality where I invite the students to come and to speak with me. And because I create a safe space,
I think that's important.
Yeah, I create a safe space in the classroom and in all of my circles. That's the that's the first thing we do, is we create a safe space. What happens in here stays in here. And no one else is allowed to laugh at anybody. And you will be surprised, especially with the children, just how generous they are with one another and how much space they give each other to reveal themselves.
Wow.
You know, and they take that safe space seriously. And I build a village in my classrooms. And it comes across from the students coming to speak to me, and I tell anybody, I'm the weakest crayon in the box. They come in there. I'm not going to, my mother's a social worker, and she used to come home and she had to tell me all of these stories, and I'm like, I couldn't take it, because I'm going to cry with you. And a lot of times I do.
But don't you think sometimes people need that? They just need someone, they need empathy.
Right, but at the same time they need strategies.
Right, they need strategies, I think they need support.
Right.
So, I mean, and this is so, the show is called People, part of it is, entrepreneurs, authors, and people with a passion. And you're both, you're an author, and I can just hear and just sense your passion for what you're doing with the children. And, I just want to say thank you for doing that, for your contribution to the community.
So let me say this. So from the classroom, from what I've got from teaching at Morgan, and all of these children that became, especially young girls, they became my daughters. So I actually developed, so it was out of that I developed my daughter's power circle.
Wow.
Because I saw all these young sisters just having trouble relating with themselves, trouble relating with one another, and I come from a background that says, sisterhood is real.
Right.
I have some really good sister friends in my life, and I want the sisters, the young sisters, to know that sisterhood is possible.
It's possible.
Stop looking at basketball wives.
Yes.
And all that kind of craziness that talks about divisiveness.
Right. And even though those are called reality shows,
they're not real. That's not
our
reality.
Necessarily the reality. It's not our reality.
That's not, because at the end of the day, when he leaves, who are you going to go? Whose shoulder you going to do? You go to your sister's shoulder. And
I heard a saying that men come and go, but sisters and friends are forever. So that's kind of like what you're saying. So
in fact, after one of the young women, after the first, my daughter's circle, one of the young women said in her, the response, asking people what do they think about it, and she said, I didn't know that I didn't have to be in competition with my sisters. I thought that was so big. I was like, why did you ever think that? Right? And it's
TV,
because
what they see on TV has become their reality. But I'm glad that you're introducing them to a different reality.
So in building that, and then from there I went to Maya Angelou Youth Academy, Young Adult Academy, where there's a lot of young girls and young males there trying to get their GED. So these are the population people call disconnected youth. And this has become my passion, with these young women who need a continuum of care. Because we talk about young men being at risk all the time, but very rarely do we talk about our sisters being at risk, and they are at risk, and they're raising our babies. They're raising the future. So they need some other mothers, but I can't do all the mothering myself. So I've enlisted a group of women who who went through their own 6-week Writing for Healing training to become mother mentors.
Wonderful.
And so they didn't necessarily have any trauma, but they had some stuff they needed to work out because
Right.
I said, well, you need to work out some stuff before you go.
Right. I mean, don't we all though? I mean,
we do.
I think everybody's stuff is different.
Exactly.
So, I mean, I think that's great. I think that's wonderful. And, you know, before we go too far, we do want to talk about your book.
Okay.
We want to talk about, if you're just tuning in, you're tuned into Savvy. I'm your host, Kathleen Driver, and this is a show for entrepreneurs, authors, and people with a passion. And I certainly have a very passionate guest today, Kimberly Collins. She is the founder of SOAR, but she is also the author of a very, very compelling book. It is called Choose You, Wednesday Wisdom to Wake Your Soul. And I read a few excerpts, and I can tell that it certainly was written from a place, again, of internal passion. So there's one excerpt that I want to ask you to read, but before you read that, can you tell me why you wrote it and why did you choose the title, Choose You? And I think that'll lead right into the excerpt that I would like for you to read for us.
Okay, so I didn't start out writing this book, so let me be clear.
Okay.
All right?
That's interesting. So,
right. So what happened was I was in Anguilla and I had a buddy and we were sitting around looking at the water and philosophizing about stuff, and I said, well, I need to write that down. Now this is when we still had email, so that's how long ago I started writing these Wednesday Wisdoms before we even knew what to call a blog or what, before even that happened, and I was just sending them around. And over the years, people have said, you need to put this in the book, you need to put this in the book. And so what I really did was, this is not everything. So I took most of the wisdoms that I could find or that were, that I received the most positive feedback. And I actually organized them in a way that follows the workshops, the 6-week and 8-week workshops that I conduct, writing for healing workshops I conduct. And so I put them under those different headings, like the Come From Place, which the Come From Place is a poem written by my girlfriend, Sam Gresham. Sam actually is the person who illustrated this cover. She's a wonderful painter.
And so before we get too far, before I forget, because you have so much to share. You talk about your workshops. Do you have a workshop coming up that you'd like to share with the public, your 6-week workshop?
No, right now I'm actually in the planning stage of putting workshops, because I really want to do more workshops with the youth, especially since I've just finished a 5-week workshop in a STEM program to get your mind right with high school students. So that's really kind of energized me to get out there and to perhaps put some of the programs in charter schools, as well as other places where the students can benefit from them before they get to college. Because STEM is great, but they need to know how to write. And so now we're starting to see a real gap in soft skills. But back to the book, just even thinking about the title, and a lot of the different wisdoms that I've written were taken from me seeing something on TV and and whatever I felt about that and giving some kind of response. One was, I think I was looking at American Idol, and the woman she never believed that she could sing. Now she's sitting there on American Idol, she's making round after round, but she's still not
believing in herself for the most part. Right.
And I even have a wisdom in there about myself as a writer. I'm like, okay, God, if you really want me to be a writer, then give me a sign. Well, he gave me a sign, and I got an award or something. Then I said, okay, God. After I got that award,
you probably said to God, really? Because I went through the same thing.
Yeah, and then you go back and you're like, okay, God, I need some more affirmation. I know God is present. You know what?
What more do you need? What more do you need? Because for me, I always wanted to be a writer, and the show's not about me; it's about you. But just to share, I always wanted to be a writer. I had written a book maybe 10 or 15 years before I actually shared it with anybody. So once I shared it with a sister friend, and she called me, she said, I don't know what you're doing, but you better be somewhere finishing this book. And that gave me the motivation. And 6 books later, and here's some of my books here on the table, but 6 books later, I finally gave myself permission to be a writer. And I think it's about giving yourself permission to do these things that innately you really want to do.
And when we talk about people having stories, so before I even talk about my read one of my wisdoms, I was part of this session called Landmark, and I met this sister who was going through some things, and she wrote this book, Lean On Me, or something, Lean In. And she wants to do more public speaking. I think she is doing that. But she said, I don't think this book is where it needs to be. And so she said, would you mind looking at it? So that actually launched the Get Your Story Right part of SOAR, where I edit people's books, right? Because I do think people have stories that they need to get out and that we can actually grow from. But if you wait for an agent, you know, when you know how this publishing game goes,
wait for someone else to tell you that you're a writer,
or to say that it's print worthy, then you might never get it out.
Right. Exactly.
So there are a lot of as a result, there are a lot of publishing companies, independent publishing companies that are, but you have to be careful.
You do have to be careful, but there's also self-publishing, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit, because I do a class on self-publishing, and we'll talk about that at the end.
You have to, and that's fine. You have to be careful, but please just get the story right. You
start out with.
You need an editor.
Well, you need an editor.
This is what I'm pushing to. Is that you need an editor, because you do have things to say, but if you are not saying it in a way where people that's really clearly understood, then you've missed your mark.
But as part of the process, and I kind of talk about this a little bit in my class, is that, you know, you want to write, and I think everybody does have a story. I think everybody has something to write about, whether that be fiction or motivation like you write, or, you know, how-tos, instructional guides. But you have to have it written. I mean, as part of the process, like you said, get it down on paper and, you know, write it, and then, you know, go for the editor. Find out if you're going to self-publish. But, you know, have your product at least on paper.
Right. But what I'm trying to push and really put out there is that you have a lot of people that don't necessarily respect the editing process.
Right, and again, it is a process. It is a process.
Yeah, and I'm saying you do need somebody that,
absolutely.
I mean, every good writer,
absolutely.
you know, just like they say, it's the foolish lawyer that goes and represents himself.
Right.
It's a foolish writer who goes out and doesn't think that they need an editor.
Right.
I have another book about to come out. It's my book of poetry, because I started as a poet. It's called Bessie's Resurrection, and I had at least 4 or 5 different friends who tore that book apart. And I just had to look at
But that's what you want. You want someone, and again, this is part of how I teach writers, but you want someone to give you an honest opinion. You want someone that you can trust. You know, because they're going to be haters, and you'll have some, you know, you may have someone to say, oh, this book is nothing. Or, you know, who told you can write? But you want to get honest feedback.
Yeah, and I actually went through a workshop with this book, you know, one of the workshop people was, you know, she didn't give me anything positive. You know, it's like, well, how do I grow from that? I don't understand your critique.
Exactly.
So you have to give, you know, I remember one of my professors, and she was like, well, how can I, you know, I don't understand why this student. I said, well, you can't tell everybody what they're doing bad without telling them what they're doing good.
How to fix it, exactly.
Or tell them something. This has to be something good.
Constructive.
There has to be something that can push the person
forward.
To make them feel that they can do
it. Right.
You know?
Right. And now that you've done it, and because, you know, this is only a 30-minute show, you and I can go on and on, but I do want you to share from the intro.
I've been watching Grey's Anatomy forever, and I just thought I would die when her husband was still on it, Derek was still on it.
Yes.
And this was before they got married, and she was like, choose me. I was like, oh my God. I don't think I could have asked anybody, you know, to do that. And then I thought about it. I was like, you need to choose you. And real quickly, just lately, one of the things that I have, as somebody that's not married, is, you know, it's like, well, you know, we haven't been chosen, right? And then a girlfriend of mine was like, well, she has a friend who's been married 4 times. She said she's been chosen 4 times.
Right.
You know, and 4 times it hasn't worked.
So talk about perspective, right?
But what I thought about was, did in any of those times did she choose herself? Because if she chooses herself, then it's not about somebody else choosing you. Then you choose each other. Right. And it's a compliment. It's a compliment.
Exactly.
So let me read this.
Please do read that.
So choose you. When you choose you, you will not stay in relationships that do not honor your spirit. When you choose you, you will not harm your body with weight, alcohol, or drugs that will kill you. When you choose you, your choices are not predicated upon others' views or expectations, but what the Most High has moved you to do. When you choose you, you will not blame others for the space where you dwell. When you choose you, you get it. When others choose to do something different. Choosing you is not selfish. It just means you do not come in body parts. And you must consider how adverse decisions affect the whole self. God knew this when you were chosen to be born and given the choice to breathe in life. Therefore, who are you not to choose you?
I just love that. I just love that. That just so resonates because, as you said, you know, I think things fall into place for us, particularly as women, when, you know, and, you know, folks say that we shouldn't put ourselves first, but I think it's God, self, and then other people.
Right.
That's what I think. Because
well, God and self, that's a duality right there.
Right, but we have to put God first, you know, because as our Creator and our Father, you know, we have to put Him first. Then, you know, you take care of yourself. And then you can take care or do or whatever else, you know, that concerns other people. And, you know, and everybody's heard it before. This is why they tell you on the airlines, you know, put your own oxygen mask on first, and then the folks around you. So I think, to me, you know, that's synonymous with what you're saying in choose you. Because when you choose you, and particularly that example was about a young lady who wanted to be chosen by, you know, someone that she had romantic aspirations for, but it probably was resonating within her spirit that she hadn't chosen herself because she was waiting to be chosen by someone else.
I don't know whether it resonated with Gray at that moment. I don't think she got that part.
You don't think she got it?
No, I don't think she got that part. You know, that may have come a little
later.
few. I don't know if it came episodes later, but you know, it became a conversation for my girlfriends and I. You know, when we have one guilty pleasure. We look at one of the soap operas, and we're trying to figure out how these women who come up from nothing end up owning hotels.
Well, you know, that's TV. That's how that goes.
you know, and they married the rich man and all this other stuff. So you know, it was just all these things that we were just talking about in terms of doing all the right things and still not being chosen, right? And that's why I said, well, maybe we need to backpedal about that and how we think about that and how we think about ourselves.
Right.
And I'm a work in progress. And if nothing else you find in this book is that I'm a work in progress. Just like one of the things that we were saying earlier, sometimes people see us and they think that we got it all together. Just like my mother mentors. You know, people, you know, some are artists, most of them are artists, and one is a surgeon, another person's a masseuse, and they would just look at them as, you know, kumbaya, they have it all together. But no, not all the time.
Right.
And I think, and it's even with what I bring with my girls, is that I'm trying to tell them that, you know what, even at 50, you might still be running into some knuckleheads, and you still might be knocking your head up against some wall. I mean, so in here, I offer some strategies. I can't say I'm gonna fix your life, but I can offer you some strategies on how you can fix it with your own words. And using a boilerplate to help you get to the meat of what it is that you're feeling, because you really have to tap into that.
Right. I think so too. I think so. Thank you for sharing that. Before we run out of time, there's a whole lot more I wanted to ask you, but
I'm sorry.
No, it's all good because I mean you've shared so much that I think would be helpful to our viewers. One thing, there's another thing in your book. There's a chapter about surrender. Now
you said that's actually, surrender is an essay, but surrender actually comes up under New Year.
Okay.
Right? Because you know that's the chapter. You know how you decide you just want to start your new year. We always want to begin anew. Right. We want like fresh start.
So why is surrender so important in that though?
Because you know I was thinking about that on the ride over here. I said, well, in here I talk about surrendering in terms of let the road rage or whatever, but I can't tell you. Just I said, I'm a work in progress. That
well,
just
we all are.
Yeah,
we all are. But
so
I
surrender
think
just in terms of sometimes you can't always be right. You can't be wedded to being right. Sometimes you have to just surrender that the money looks funny right now, but it's going to work out. It always does. You know, you have to surrender to the process, because it is a process. I mean, and I think we forget that we crawled before we walked, right? And you know, nobody just pops out a womb and starts talking and doing all of these magnificent things. You know, there are steps to everything.
Right, because the key is that you said a few times is that, you know, you say you're a work in progress, but we're all works in progress.
But what I think is that when we talk about looking at TV and we look into and getting sucked up into the unreality of somebody else's reality, right? Is that we think that that's how it happens. Just like you ask young boys, what do they want to be? Oh, I want to be a basketball star. Do you know what the percentage of folks that make it to the NBA? Right. You know, do you understand the work that takes? You know, it's more than just a jump shot. You know, I mean, it's a jump shot early in the morning, midday, in the day. You know, I mean, those folks practice all the time. It's a process, and sometimes we just have to surrender to that. And that's what surrender is. And when I talk about the new year, it's not just January 1st. Like one of my girlfriends, I told her, you know, and my friends and family, when their birthday comes around, I say, Happy New Year. Because this is your new year. That's your start. So wherever you decide your start to
that's your new year.
That's your new year.
I think that's important too, because, you know, everybody tries to do that January 1st, New Year's resolution thing. And then by February, when things haven't gone their way, they're like, okay, I'll do it next year. But I think you start where you are. You know, and they're restarts. You know, for me, it's a refresh and a restart. You know, because I'm not going to always do it on January 1st. You know, it depends on where I am, you know, in my own evolution, and whatever else is going on around.
Sometimes we don't do it.
And sometimes you don't
and we have to be all right with that.
And we have to be all right with that.
And we have to also realize, one of the things I had to realize is that talking bad about myself to myself is not going to make me move any faster or do it.
If anything, it'll slow you and weigh you
down.
It'll
slow
you and weigh you down.
Exactly.
So we only have 2 minutes left. And before I know the time goes by, doesn't it? So you mentioned that you do some training, some writing. You have some writing training.
So as I said, I just finished a 5-week doing the Get Your Mind Right program with a STEM program on Morgan's campus. And I am looking to put more of my programs in place for the winter. I'm gonna take a couple of. So this is regroup. This is a couple.
This is your reset and refresh.
Right.
So can people find out about your training on your website?
On my website.
So before we leave, you can find out more about Kimberly on www.dcsoar.com. Correct?
Yes.
And can people email you?
Yes. People can email me.
Okay, well,
at
give them your email address.
dcsoar@gmail.com. dcsoar@gmail.com.
Okay.
So
hopefully you've heard the passion between Kimberly and me as writers and authors and wanting to share and train other people. So before I leave, I just wanted to share that I'm having a workshop which is called Writer's Jumpstart. And that workshop is going to be in Bowie, Maryland on Saturday, September 22nd from 10:15 to 12:15. So come and join the conversation and learn along with other aspiring authors and writers. And if you register today, you will get a discount. And you can find it on eventbrite.com. If you search for Writer's Jumpstart on eventbrite.com and register today, you will receive a discount from an already affordable price. And I'm sorry.
I was gonna say people can find my book on Amazon.
I'm so sorry. Yes, please.
On Amazon.
You can find Kimberly's book, Choose You, Wednesday Wisdom to Wake Your Soul, on Amazon.com. Please support her. You can tell what passion she has for what she does. And I want to thank her again for coming and sharing on my show. Again, I am Kathleen Driver, and you were tuned in to Savvy, the show featuring entrepreneurs, authors, and people with a passion. Good night, and we'll see you next Thursday at 6:30.
Good night.